So in that film, you play the part of a Soviet cosmonaut unit with many actors whom had lives that had, I think, kind of taken a similar course to yours. No, I mean, I think Natasha Schneider might have been from Latvia herself, right? So what was it like being able to work with so many people with stories like yours? Or had you had the opportunity to do that in other places prior to this film?
No, I met a lot of ex-Soviets while filming Moscow on the Hudson. So it wasn't the first time, but and I did some television things that there were a couple of actors that I worked with before. There was a very close friend of mine. He was a big star in Russia and also left too early. Savely Kramarov, who played the main KGB guy in Moscow on the Hudson. And he played one of the cosmonauts in 2010. No, it was, we all liked each other, and some you liked a little more than the others, but it's life, you know.
Now, given these two major films happened kind of back to back on it, I mean, what did it feel like for you in those moments? I mean, having, immigrated here and everything else, did it feel surreal? Did it feel like it was real life?
It was. The one thing I didn't mention, that before I left Soviet Union, I was in a very popular miniseries in Russia, and I was a recognizable actor. Many people didn't know my name, but my face, I mean, I was walking the streets and everybody was like saying hi or pointing at me. So that wasn't new to me, this feeling of recognition. After 2010, people would come up, take pictures and stuff like that, even after Moscow on the Hudson. And so that kind of, I was already familiar with, and didn't change anything in my life. But did I feel lucky? Of course I felt lucky, because when you remember, we were talking about getting into the theater school was a big challenge, because when I saw so many people, and the same thing when I decided to emigrate, everybody said, "Oh, you have to learn a new skill. I mean, learn programming, or computers are big now, or do something else." And I had the same stubbornness as I had when I was applying to school. So no, I'll try to make it here. And that's that's actually for the younger viewers in your audience. It's a good thing to remember that if you really want something, go for it. Don't listen to other people. You need to be patient, you need to work hard, but just don't listen to what people say around you.
Especially the negative stuff. Now, you'd said earlier that your parents, were reasonably supportive. Were they still in Latvia, USSR at the time that these movies hit, and were they able to see either of those films?
No, they were already here.
Okay.
They came a year after, because strange enough, when I immigrated, I didn't come from Riga. I was living and working in Moscow, because I went to college in Moscow. I stayed there for another 5 years, working in a theater company. And it was more difficult to immigrate for younger people. Older people, and especially in Latvia, it was much easier. So when I said goodbye to my parents when I was leaving, of course, I didn't know for 100% will I see them again, but I knew that there was a good chance that I will. And that's what happened. I brought them in a year later.
So the next film that kind of sticks out to me is The Name of the Rose with Sean Connery. And once again, you find yourself alongside another great in the industry. How did you find out about that role, and how did you land that one?
I think Jean-Jacques Annaud, who directed it, saw me in those two films that you mentioned before, and knew, and he actually asked for me, and I almost turned it down because I was on the verge of getting a pilot for a television series, and there was like I was with William Morris, a good agency, and we had a very big debate with my agent, and she wanted me to do television series because it was more money. I mean, if the series never
If it takes off, it's more money.
it never took off. Yeah, so I made the right choice. And it was, of course, it was a fantastic experience. I mean, it's the whole thing. If you know, it was filmed in two countries. The first country was Germany, and it was a real 13th century.
Classic.
Yeah, Kloster Eberbach. And the second part of the film was filmed near Rome, where they built the replica of this monastery, because if you remember the film, it burns down, and they needed to burn it down. And they couldn't do it with the real monastery, so they built the replica near Rome. And Jacques Annaud, when we all came to the set in Germany, they dressed all the extras. We didn't film that day, just to show the set. He had extras, he had goats, chickens running around. It was like you immersed yourself in a different century. It was so strange and so wonderful.
So when did you first meet Sean, and what do you remember about him?
Sean, I met the day we went to see the set. I was telling you about a minute ago, a few seconds ago. And I actually had a line that I knew I'll tell him. Paul Maslansky says hi. He worked with Paul in Moscow on a film Red Tent, and they became good friends. So that right away got us like, what can I tell about Sean Connery? It's one of the greatest actors, and wonderful, wonderful, fun to be around man who can talk about any subject. You start talking about any sophisticated subject, and in 3 minutes you would be talking golf.
You know, in many of your roles we've talked about so far, you've brought this kind of sense of depth and dignity to characters, some of which could have been played as caricatures. And why do you think you're able to play these kinds of characters in that way, with so much depth and dignity in that way?
I have no idea.
It just is.
I mean, so many things that surprised me in this life. After I did the rather small part in Spider-Man 2 and 3, all of a sudden, this gave me more recognition than any other films and bigger parts that I ever done. I mean, there are so many memes, even now on the internet. Go punch in Mr. Ditkovich and you'll see my face in different, and I'm flying.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, there's YouTube videos, there's just all these give me rent.
Yeah.
All that give me rent memes and YouTube videos and different things. They've changed different things. It's interesting where you've done all these characters with so much depth, and then it kind of reminds me of like Christopher Walken. He talks about how he's had all these great characters, but yet he's known for cowbell from Saturday Night Live by a younger generation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of people, where here he was in Deer Hunter and in all these incredible things, and here you've done all this great work, and people remember Give Me Rent.